so frustrated because I longed for my husband to open up and talk to me. For years, I just gave up and decided deeper conversations were just not possible. And finally, I learned 3 reasons my husband didn't want to talk to me. And once I changed them, he wanted to talk to me. Join me today and I'll share them with you. I'm Julia Woods, and I've been married to my husband, Jeff, for 33 years this year and have been a couples coach for the last 8 years. I know that one of the deepest longings couples have is to be able to talk freely with each other without all that defensiveness. And through what I've learned in my marriage and some outside resources, I love getting to help couples do that. If you want help with that, make sure to click the red button and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss an episode. Today, I want to share with you the 3 biggest things I was doing that caused my husband not to want to talk to me and how I changed it. The first thing that I was doing is I was in his backyard. What I mean by that is a husband and wife are like neighbors with their own backyards. In each spouse's backyard are their thoughts, feelings, attitudes, motives, reactions, and all kinds of things, which they are 100% responsible for. For years, I stood at my husband's fence line and pointed out everything he needed to change in his backyard, while my back was turned to my backyard, where my responsibilities and the things I needed to take responsibility for were. I blamed, shamed, and criticized each thing that I saw as an issue in him. I saw him as the problem, and as a result, our conversations were miserable for him. No matter what conversation we had, I seemed to always find a way to turn it into something that he wasn't doing right. I hated who I was becoming as a constant critique of my best friend. I had spent so much time focusing on his backyard that I was pretty clueless about my own. I knew something had to change. I started journaling to get my thoughts out and explore them. I started observing the things I had been unwilling to look at, like my anger, my bitterness, my judgment, and my arrogance. In conversations with my husband, I started talking more about what I was learning and noticing about myself and the work that I needed to do and the work that I was doing in my own self. The more I focused my attention on my backyard, the more he started looking at his own and wanting to have conversations with me. The second thing that I was doing was I was living as a complainer. Because I saw him as the problem, I regularly complained about his actions. He didn't take me on dates. He didn't invest enough in the kids. He was overspending. He didn't work as hard as I did. On and on my complaints went. And while those things may have been true, the problem was I was complaining about him. And the more I complained, the more despairing our conversations became. Before I knew it, I had become a chronic complainer. By regularly complaining, I lost my joy and enthusiasm for life. And I blamed my husband for it. My heart was turning hard. I realized I was miserable and I needed to find a new way. I started writing thank you notes to God every day for what I was grateful for. And within weeks, I felt my whole cold heart starting to soften. I started taking nature walks and paying attention to what was going on inside of me. What was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was I doing? I replaced complaining to my husband with making requests for the things I wanted. Much to my surprise, he wanted to talk about what I wanted and began responding to my request in a way he'd never, ever responded when I was complaining. The third thing I realized I was doing that was bringing my husband to not want to talk to me is I was always serious. When we were in public, I would laugh and have a good time. But at home, I took life way too seriously and I didn't realize it. I thought perfection would make me lovable, so I took everything in my life very seriously. In my mind, there was always a right and a wrong way to do things. From the way the kids dressed to managing our finances to running our business, life felt like it was waiting to punch me in the face if I didn't get everything just right. Only when things felt right in the world could I relax for a few minutes and enjoy myself at home. The problem was nothing was really ever right or perfect. I started seeing the lie that perfection is. The more I embraced my whole self, both my shadow and my light, the more I could see life as an opportunity to learn and grow. I started feeling free to discover, even when it felt like things weren't going as they should. Learning and growing started to be fun. I started to be able to laugh at things in myself that I had once been too mortified to even admit existed. I could let down and relax, and my conversations with my husband became much more lighthearted and fun. By focusing on my backyard, growing a thankful heart, and letting myself grow and learn through the choices I made, conversations became interesting and much more lighthearted. My husband started enjoying hearing about what I was learning about myself. I enjoyed hearing what he was learning about himself. We started learning and growing together, and over time, we went from barely talking to not wanting to stop talking. Now we talk a lot and never run out of things to talk about. Do you struggle to get your husband to talk to you? Do any of these symptoms resonate with you? If so, please have grace on yourself. I empathize deeply with you. I understand that you desperately want to love your spouse, and you can't transform what you can't see. Now, if you are a spouse listening and you feel what I have just shared is blocking you from wanting to talk to your spouse, would you also have grace, and would you also have empathy? I can promise you, from one who was doing these things, your spouse does love you. And how can you invite an honest and open and loving conversation that could help them see that you see their desire, they want to connect with you, and yet their approach isn't working for you, and help them see what it is that you need instead of what they are currently choosing? The first step I want to invite you into, if you are doing the things that I was doing, is to pick one of the 3 habits that I shared that you recognize you want to change, and simply take action. If you recognize you are in your husband's backyard, shift and start looking at your own. If you recognize you're complaining, start a gratitude journal. If you recognize you are taking life too seriously, consider letting go of perfection and focus on learning and growing. I invite you to commit to working together to create a space where you can both freely talk and share. Loneliness is a pandemic significantly impacting our world, and it is vitally important that the 2 of you partner together to find a way to have open and honest conversations so you can turn the loneliness in your marriage into deep connection. If you want to take another step, I invite you to take my quiz so you can learn about your communication style. You'll find the link to the video in the video description below to take that quiz. If you found this episode helpful, would you share one thing in the comments that you found helpful? And would you also give it a thumbs up so I know that you appreciated what I shared with you? Hey, hon.
Yeah.
As I work to change these ways of being in your backyard, complaining, taking life way too seriously, which one made the biggest difference in you wanting to start having conversations with me?
I think you recognizing that you were in my backyard changed your position.